So it's July 1st. I figured we'd give you guys a little garden update. I just weeded the entire garden this morning. It took me under an hour to weed everything. And this is a huge area. There are 8 big rows. Over here we have our tomatoes. We have a row of peppers, 2 rows of onions. Down here we have our carrots. They're kind of hard to see, but they are coming up. And then over here we have our beans. We have some yellow beans and some green beans. Then up there we have cucumber and just some random things. I had planted pumpkin over here, but it doesn't seem like it's coming up this year. But we do have 2 mystery plants that are either pumpkin or cucumber. When they're teeny tiny, they kind of look the same, so we'll wait and see what those are. There is our garden update. Blueberries sawdusted. Sawdust adds acidity to the ground, which makes the blueberries grow better and sweeter. Here's our little DIY grape arbor and all my Concord grapes. They're growing like crazy, probably because I cut the hell out of them this spring. We have another wire to add to the top, and then we're gonna connect both sides so they grow overhead. I'm out here in the garden. Here are my cucumber plants. I have 3 of them out here. There's one with bear, there's one and one down there, and there's Ruger too. Everybody likes to come and smell the inside of the garden. I don't have it opened up all the time. I have a little wire fence and a little wire gate, and so the dogs can't get in here whenever they want. So they like to come in here and sniff around and see what kind of critters have been lurking. Over there are the turkeys and the chickens. I'll show you those guys next. Turkeys are going to be hitting our freezer pretty soon. That's the whole purpose of raising them. So anyway, here are my cucumbers. They're going to get trellised, I think. I'm going to stretch fencing here and let them vine. But I want to point out to you, in my garden, we used a ton of hardwood tree bark to eradicate weeds. Obviously, like, we still have weeds. I still have to hoe. Hoeing is the easiest way to get rid of these weeds. But there are some weeds that I actually leave sometimes. I'm pretty sure this is a remedy for poison ivy. It's not jewelweed. That's the typical remedy for poison ivy. But that is maybe Japanese knotwood. I'm not sure. I want to grow it and identify it. So that is staying. Whereas some of these other ones I know are just straight up weeds. They are going to go. But in my garden, I intentionally leave plants sometimes. I believe that this is coltsfoot. And coltsfoot is a really great thing to have around. It also has really good benefits, so I want to see if I can identify that. And then randomly I have some sunflowers growing. I'm pretty sure this is a pumpkin. I did not plant this pumpkin here. It grew on its own. These leaves look like pumpkin leaves to me. If you can see with the cucumber plants, these are much more pointed leaves, and these stalks look a lot more hollow. So this is either a squash or a pumpkin. We'll wait and see. And down here, this I'm pretty sure is borage. So there's a lot of things. This is a sunflower. There's a lot of things that just kind of grow randomly, and if you wouldn't know what you were identifying, you would probably just rip out as a weed. But yeah, like right there we have 3 sunflowers, or 4 sunflowers growing. That is very, very random. We did not plant those there, but that's what those are. Our beans are coming into blossom, which means we're gonna have little baby beans soon. So we have pretty much 2 rows of beans, and I picked up a few little dill plants. My dill wasn't doing very great. There's one there, and then I have one down here somewhere. Beans are looking really good. There's some dill. That one's already come to head. Over here we have, I should say I have more dill, just kind of randomly. Could be fennel also. That looks like a fennel to me. They look very similar. I think a lot of gardening is just learning how to identify what your plants are and what is growing and what was generously donated by nature. Because, you know, I could have picked that out, but I knew that was something of value, and I'm glad I left it, because if that's fennel, that's an amazing find. So this is my carrots. Lots of fennel up through here. 2 rows of carrots, and then I have 2 rows of onions. One regret I have in my garden, you guys can see the general gist is just these long rows. Harper's up here too. Hi, Harper. Hi. Just these real long rows, and now after the fact, I wish that I would have had some like walkways up through the center just for easier access, but that's okay. Onions are looking pretty good. Then over there we have a row of peppers and a row of tomatoes. Getting some blooms on the peppers. So that's awesome. Tomatoes are all looking really good. They've really bushed out the last few days. So you can see there are still some weeds. Here are some leftover tomato plants that have sprouted. But for this big of a garden though, there's really not too many weeds. Weeding is pretty easy. I encourage the kids, whenever they're weeding, and myself, pull things out by the root, make yourself a weed pile. That's the most effective way, but sometimes you can just use a hoe, and this bark is on pretty thick, and you can just kind of move around the top 2 inches or so or less, and the weeds will pop out. But sometimes they do kind of regrow themselves if you're not efficient, and that can defeat the purpose. We did bring home more bark. Brian dumped a pile right up there. This is hardwood tree bark. We are in the tree business, so the lumber industry. So we get this hardwood tree bark for free, and we use that as mulch, if you haven't been around to see that process. And when the garden is really dry like this, I can see spots that are, you can see the clay soil underneath. I do need to add more bark to this, but this is like the most efficient way to keep weeds down. If you guys have never tried this, you really should. I really encourage this mulching technique. There's nothing in the tree bark itself. This tree bark, we've actually tested it. We've taken tree bark, put it into buckets, let it sit with water in it, and just kind of monitored the pH as the tree bark broke down, and it's not acidic, it's not basic, it's pretty well neutral, and it's not really going to alter the soil in a huge capacity, aside from, you know, limiting the weeds and retaining moisture. It does retain moisture underneath it, so it works really well for us anyway. We're going to spend some time, probably tomorrow. The sun, you can see it's like 6 o'clock, 6:30, and the sun is still blazing. I don't really feel like sweating out here. I usually try to hit the garden up in the mornings because the sun comes up over there and I'm shaded by that giant cherry tree. So I'm going to take you guys over, show you the turkeys and the chickens and my little orchard over there, and take you over to the grapes and the berries. I just want to show you guys really quickly these things that are growing in this walkway that are of good health value. So here we have dandelion, very stereotypical dandelion, great for the liver. You have red clover here, and also white clover. Then I saw, yep, right here, I have plantain. Plantain is excellent. If you get a bug bite, you can pick one of these leaves, mash it up, chew it up, spit it on your cut, or your sting, and it will help take away the stinging pain. So yeah, I just wanted to show you guys that there are things that grow wild that can be of good importance if you know what you're looking for. Before I leave, I should add too that the whole point of planting this dill, you can see dill is pretty similar to that fennel I was showing you earlier, really frondy leaves. The whole point of planting the dill intentionally with the beans is that they're great companion plants. The dill will help deter bugs, and so far I'm not seeing any signs of Japanese beetles on my green beans, so maybe the dill is already taking effect because I know beetles are already here. Over here is another one of those areas where I'm just kind of letting this grow. I think that this is a cucumber plant. This tip is very pointed and jagged like my cucumbers up there. So I think that this is a cucumber, I'm not sure, but around it is a whole bunch of comfrey. Comfrey is such a pain in the butt to get rid of. It just goes everywhere. But I learned that comfrey leaves are actually really great fertilizer in the garden. So you guys will have to stick around for that video. I'm going to show you how I take comfrey and turn it into fertilizer for the garden. But this is just another example of, you know, I saw that this was definitely either a pumpkin, a cucumber, a squash. I knew just by the earliest of leaves that came on, these guys down here, I knew that this was something of importance. Put a tomato cage around it. Originally, I just had some rocks and sticks around it. Got a tomato cage around it, and sure enough, it is something of value. So learn to identify your plants even early on. I'll go say hi to Rugi. If you guys are new to the channel, he's been bedazzled. Ruger is our old farm dog. He's about 13 and a half years old. Almost 13 and a half. We call him the Warden of the North and the Protector of the Realm. I'm a huge Game of Thrones fan, so if you guys like that show, you'll understand the reference. He prowls the farm. He goes the whole way to my mother-in-law's. This is a big family farm. We all live here. And he patrols the farm and greets all the visitors, and he's just the best. He's just the best boy.
You're gonna ruin your bedazzling. Oh, yes. I just had to get that. Oh.
These were a new ad from Brian. He picked these up on Amazon. They have these little tails and they move around. You can fill them with sand, or you can just stick them on the top of one of these T-posts. Hoping it keeps the bunnies out. So here are our turkeys and chickens. Right now we have 4 turkeys. We have 2 boys and 2 girls in terms of turkeys, from what we can understand. We call that guy in the back, blah, 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 I cannot talk today. We call that guy in the back Big Toe. When he arrived from the hatchery, his one toe was strange, and it's just kind of gotten stranger ever since. It's kind of big and fat, his middle toe, so we call him Big Toe. But he's the big boy, the big gobbler, and then we have another boy, I would assume is the Jake. I'm not real sure. I'm not huge on turkeys. Then we have 2 hens, and we have 3 cinnamon queen chickens. They are about egg-laying size. These guys are going to hit our freezer pretty soon. They are bronze Orlop turkeys, and we will butcher them ourselves. If you are new to the channel again, this is pretty normal for us. We raise pretty much all of our own turkey and chicken meat, and a lot of our own eggs too. In the past, Brian's family has raised cows and pigs. We hope to do that again one day, be able to grow all of our own food. Here is our little orchard. We have these 3 new trees, and they are not doing very well. But this is one of our established trees. It is an apple tree, and it is doing pretty good. This is the first real year for apples. Last year I think we had 1 apple on it.
Yeah, and it went bad.
Yeah, and it went pretty bad. And same thing over here. Our pear trees are doing pretty well. I see a couple of pears over there. Up there, we have peach trees that were from my mom and stepdad. Those were a part of our birthday present. Peach trees. You know my mom, she's Nani over on Nani's Life. I know a lot of you have come from her channel. Looks like this is an apple tree here. So that's exciting. We have to restake that tree. It has a serious lean to it, so we're gonna stake it, try to get it so it isn't leaning anymore.
Oh, that place.
Here at my blueberry bushes. I came out last night and picked a whole bunch of berries. I'm eating a berry right now. And shouldn't have to pick any tonight. We put down a whole bunch of sawdust. Now this is actual sawdust. It's the inner part of the tree. It does carry a lot of acidity with it. It's not the bark. The bark is neutral, as I said before. Papa found a mega berry. They're actually really sweet right now. Looks like this has quite a few that are ripe. They are delicious. Last night we probably picked 1.5 gallons of berries. Looks like that bush is ready to be picked. We're getting a ton of berries. And last year I see some yarrow over there. That's exciting. That white flower there, that's yarrow. That's great to stop bleeding. Oh, that one was a little tangy. Got some raspberries growing up here. More over there. We've been on the hunt for Japanese beetles over here. Japanese beetles, when they come, they almost always attack my green beans and my grapes. So we've been trying to hit the grapevine pretty hard. It's a couple times a day, just walking up and down and just checking for Japanese beetles, and then we just put them in a bucket and squish them. where we feed them to the turkeys. We might actually get some grapes this year. We were supposed to add you can see how we designed this. This is a big steel pipe we sunk into the ground with a big excavator, and then we just used fencing is what we used, and we did 3 strands of fencing. And we have like 3 vines planted per section, and then we have 4 sections total. Now we were supposed to add a 4th row. Oh, the supports in the very center are actual wood posts. They were like probably 12-foot posts, I think. We recessed them into the dirt about 4 foot. And then we just drilled a hole through them so that fencing runs through the center of those posts. But we were supposed to add a 4th row of fencing on the top of both sides, and then we were going to run fencing across the top. Well, I got my vines pruned this spring, and then we just kind of ran out of time, and we never got that 4th row done. So now we have all of these random vines, and they're reaching over and connecting themselves together without us. There's a really big long one, which that's okay. We'll be able to revine them. Found the starts of a sassafras tree. You can tell that it's sassafras because it has 3 different leaves. 1, 2, 3 on the same tree. One other tip here before I go. You can see Harper's been brushing Bear up here, and she has quite a bit of dog hair. Well, she collects that. She hasn't done it yet, but she collects that, and she's been putting it in a bucket. And then what we do with that dog hair is we sprinkle it around the garden. And then when you have critters like bunnies show up that want to eat your tasty little garden, well, they smell the dog fur and they hightail it out of there.